Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave, episode 37. So I've really been thinking about trying out my Commodore 64 again, and also my VIC-20. And it started to remind me of back in the day when I used to do a lot of programming on these things. So just so you can see what I'm talking about here. Commodore 64. This was, I remember a lot of people back in my day had this system. And if they didn't have this one, they had the first one, which was the VIC-20. Looks the same. I mean, this is same body, casting and everything, same kind of keys. And, you know, this one's white, the other one's kind of a beige color. And the really only difference is that, I mean, the amount of memory. This one has very little memory compared to the 64. But yeah, I'm going to be doing something a little bit later on with these systems, and I don't even know if they even work anymore. I've had them in storage for a while, and I've been playing a lot of my Atari and my Intellivision stuff, and you know, some of my other retro games, and even my Nintendo. And I thought I used to play a lot on my Commodore 64, so perhaps I should pull it out and try it again. I know in the past I've always had problems with the disk drive not working, and you know, stuff like that. But for the VIC-20, I do have a lot of cartridges for it, so at least if I can't get the disk drive working, I can play the cartridges. But anyways, the point of this video is to talk about what I used to do a lot on my Commodore 64, and that was program. Now, I'm not a programmer myself. I mean, in a sense that I'm not one of those people that took computer science and knows how to build a video game from scratch and all that. I like to tinker, and I think a lot of us did back in those days, right? And to get some games, you had to work for it. And what I mean was, you would buy these books. Here, I got an example here. This one. Computer Battle Games. And inside there, I used to always go to the library and borrow these. Because once you type in the code, you save it on a disk. And so it would give you all these pages of code. I don't know if you can see that. And you type it in manually, you know, the hard way. And if you were done, if you got all of the text correct, you know, you didn't make any mistakes, because then you'd get those syntax errors and all that stuff, then you'd end up with a game. And they kind of gave you an example of some of the games on the cover, even though those are more artist renditions of what they are, and they would look a little bit different when you were done actually typing it in. And of course, it always depended on the system. So this one had a bunch of different systems that it accepted. So this one's what? The ZX Spectrum, ZX81, BBC, the TRS, Apple, VIC, and PET. So the reason why I bought this is because I have the VIC-20, and I thought I could type in some of these programs and get a few extra games. But, I mean, these were great. The one thing I really loved, and that was the Computes Gazette. Now, you don't get any more nerdier than actually having a subscription to a computer magazine that gave you programs to type in. And I just kind of bookmarked some pages just because I wanted to show off one of the games that I really worked hard to get to work, and that is, I don't know if you can see this here, Kablam! Now, if you've played Atari, try and get in there. If you played Atari, you've probably played a game called Kaboom, which is pretty much what this is, where the mad bomber's at the top of the building, dropping bombs down, and you're a bucket and you got to catch it. Now, in order for me to do that, to get that to work, it required a lot of code. And I'm just going to also bookmark this because I just thought it was cool. One of the best games on the C64. Anyways. So yeah, if you go to the back of the book, oftentimes what you'd get is these pages of code. And this was a much different kind of code. This is what they called machine language. So it didn't make any sense. It was all numbers, pretty much just typing in numbers after numbers after numbers after numbers. And I mean, that took dedication if you wanted to build a game or you know, copy a game out of these books. And the one thing it did require, though, unless you were damn good at you know, not making mistakes, was I don't know what they call it, like almost like a spell checker for programs. And it would tell you if the line had an error or not. you needed that. And so what I did was I cheated, because in order to get that spell checker style program, you would have to type that program out too. So they sold one with a disk inside, and it had all the programs in the book, so you didn't have to type it all in. So I actually paid extra money for this one just to get the disk, so then I can actually put that software on the Commodore 64, and essentially you would run it, and then you'd start typing in your code. So that if you made any mistakes, it would tell you, and then you'd retype the whole line, which was kind of ridiculous. But it just kind of shows the dedication that you would go through in those days. But I was just looking at some of these books also, and I mean, they're pretty neat to just go back and look at what they had back then. This one was my favorite one, because this was my first one, and it had a bunch of great games. Trap 'em, which is basically that snake style game where your snake is going around and you're trying to trap the other person. Pretty decent game, actually. First I thought this was like something to do with Windows or something, because it says window to your world or whatever. I'm like, but Windows, I don't even think it was out yet. This is 1985. Was Windows out yet? I don't know. This was another one. This was like the second one I bought, I think, and it had a neat little elevator game called Going Up. Again, it was a lot of really just typing in code, like lots and lots of code. Some of these ads are pretty decent too. I mean, look at all the graphic ads. You just don't see that anymore. You don't see anything like this. I also pulled out a couple that I thought would be interesting to look at. First of all, 64 versus Nintendo. They were starting to feel the strain of the Nintendo. I mean, this is what, 89? So Nintendo was in full swing at that time. The Nintendo Entertainment System, not the Super Nintendo or anything like that. And I guess Commodore was feeling the crunch at that point. They still were putting out these books. They still were offering the code that you could make some of these games. I know later on, their Computes magazines and all that, they stopped with the coding. I think people were like, forget it, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to, buy the game already coded. But I mean, it's got a lot of interesting old retro stuff in there. I mean, this is talking about the coin ops going on to the 64. Which I got most of my experience with. I would say I played a lot of my favorite games on the Commodore. I played Donkey Kong, I played Zaxxon, I played Q*bert, which actually wasn't called Q*bert. On the one I had, it was called Q*ball. But anyways, Q*bert clone, whatever. The other one I was going to say was this one. Music on the Commodore 64. And I know some people still do that today. They still use their Commodore 64 because it did have a great sound chip. And that was one of the things that really defined the system back in the day, was its sound chip. And I know Atari always takes a beating on that one, because their 2600 sound chip was not the best. So a lot of games just ended up sounding the same, or the sound effects were just not there. But I mean, there's a lot of great, look at this stuff, like a old printer. Look at that thing. Remember those? I don't know if you were alive back then, but yeah, we had the old pin-fed printers. Floppy disks. I mean, all this stuff's just great. And that's why I keep it, because it's good to go back down memory lane and just look at some of these old things. And, of course, there was one for talking about publishing and printing, and, this is all, like, way before people were doing this, like, routinely on PCs. This is like, you're doing this on a Commodore 64. You had to work for it. There was no point and click and letting the computer program do all the work. I mean, this was, like... Anyways, kind of cheesy graphics, or whatever. Anyways, yeah, so I hope to be pulling out the, hooking this thing up, getting it to work. I hope it works, and trying out some of my games, and maybe I'll do a couple of videos on it. Let me know what you think. Did you ever buy these? Do you remember them? Did you buy anything similar? Would you even bother coding? I mean, I'm sure people do it today. It's probably a hobby or something like that. Or write your own code. I mean, some people are just really good to write their own code. Let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of the Computes Gazettes and the Commodore 64, and if there's any games you think that you'd like to see me review or talk about. Talk to you later.